Staycation Destinations on Family Life maps out unique opportunities each Friday all summer long for you to discover somewhere unique in Pennsylvania or New York, fairly close to home and fairly affordable. On this week's primary staycation interview, we talked with Emily Weaver about the Drake Well Museum and Park. If you haven't heard that yet, I encourage you to do so. But we have some bonus content as well. If you go a little further south from the Drake Well Museum, you'll find another historic site in the petroleum industry, celebrating its anniversary in late August. The small site is a ghost town now called Pithole City.
Sure, what is that? One of the innovations that came from a result of Drake's Well was the pipeline. The pipeline, the original oil pipeline, was first created in Pithole City. Pithole City was one of many oil boom towns that sprung up literally overnight throughout the Pennsylvania oil region. Some of those towns survived, but many of them did not, and Pithole did not survive. It lasted for just a couple years. At one point, it had 15,000 people living in it. It was the third busiest post office in Pennsylvania, behind Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Tons of people flocking out to Pithole to strike it rich. People were starting to venture outside of the general Titusville, Oil Creek area to see if they could find oil in other places in western Pennsylvania. They ventured out to, if you went to Pithole today, you'd be like, wow, this is literally in the middle of nowhere, and it is. But they went along Pithole Creek, and they began to just, putting up wells literally randomly to try to see if they could strike oil, and they did. And the most interesting thing about the oil wells at Pithole was that they were flowing wells. Drake's Well produced oil, but it had to be pumped. It had to be, pumped out of the ground. Some of the wells at Pithole did not need to be pumped in order to produce. They literally just started flowing. The quantity was so great. It goes back to saying that they just didn't have anywhere to put it. So you start seeing innovations. They start building these tanks. You have what's called the Densmore tank cars, the very first railroad oil tanker cars to come into existence. You have the pipeline, having the Teamsters transport all these barrels of oil was incredibly expensive. So they came up with this idea to transport it through a pipe, and have that pipeline go to the next place in order for it to be transported by railroad. So very, very interesting what happened out there. But most people enjoy talking about Pithole because it's a great example of where at one time you had so much, all these different hotels and restaurants and theaters, and it all was gone within a year or so because those wells started to dry up. People wanted to move on to new places. You had a lot of fires occurring that burned down sections of the town, and people just started to move on. So we also administer a visitor center out at the Pithole site where we have, interpretation on what happened there, why is it significant. And we hold a couple events out there as well, and one of those is the lantern tours, and we will have those on October 5th. They're not like scary lantern tours, but we do go out at night, and we have them stop at different points along the way. You're walking right along some of the original streets of the boom town, and we tell some of the stories of the people who live there. It's really neat.
Emily Weaver leads the Friends of Drake Well, the nonprofit that operates the Drake Well Museum and Park near Titusville, Pennsylvania. I'm Greg Gillespie, Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.